finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
All right, so this week is Tim and May, or May and Tim. I never get that right. A like story.
I think the female comes first. And in this case, M comes before T, so it totally makes sense.
Reserving comment. Anyways, May, you have a message for us.
Alrighty, let's just get this business out of the way. And we need to thank our sponsor that makes it possible for us to be here. Contract Diagnostics is a firm 100% dedicated to physician contract reviews. They provide a service that all physician families will need at least one time in their careers, most likely a few additional times as well. We love this company here at Doctor Podcast Network, as they've helped over 10,000 physicians understand not only what they are signing, but what risks they're taking for their family. All contracts are reviewed by an in-house attorney and presented in a simplified way back to you. Using custom documentation, compensation data, and times outside normal business hours, they'll make it easy for you. So, don't need a contract reviewed? Well, they can even just consult you on the fairness of your current compensation structure or your contract renewal. All packages from them are flat price, so you know what you will pay up front, and residents and fellows can even make interest-free payments over time. So look them up at drpodcastnetwork.com/contract diagnostics or call 888-574-5526 or info at contractdiagnostics.com. As always, I link these in the show notes. They've been a sponsor of ours before. They are friends here at DPN, so thank you.
Outstanding contracts. Really important.
Very, very important. Kind
of like having 3 espressos, 2 bran muffins, being stuck in traffic.
Oh, I'm already starting to tighten up.
Wearing a diaper. Wearing a Depend.
Oh, well then that changes everything. That changes everything.
You never want it.
You
never want it till you need it.
Put me at the Times Square drop ball, send me to the moon. I'm good.
And when you need it, you really need it. All right, outstanding. So today's we're going to tell something happened to us that's been really bizarre in these 14 episodes that we've done, which we never really recognized. People would give us feedback, and the most consistent feedback we got was not what I thought, which was, my God, Tim is a genius. I must kneel at his feet and worship at his fount of knowledge.
You couldn't get that through in 14 episodes. It's too late.
No, exactly. Well, I thought it would take 2 maximum. No, what really engaged people, and this actually happened even before the podcast when we were just doing live streams, which was the way you relate to each other tells us that you actually love each other, but more importantly, you like each other. And so we called this a like story and not a love story, because we think the ultimate goal in a marriage should be liking your spouse for your entire life. You can choose to love somebody. Love is a choice. As Christians, we really believe that. Christ admonished us to love our enemies. Pray for those that despitefully use you. Not to get back at them on Facebook or Twitter, but to pray for those people. So there's a tremendous amount of volition involved in loving somebody. Liking somebody, not so much.
Yeah.
There's lots of patients I've seen. There's lots of, business partners I've had that I had to choose to love because it was the right thing to do, but I will never like them. And, when we get into, the most intimate relationship that humans can have, which is a marital relationship, that should really be the goal, because May and I like being around each other. We like doing stuff together. We actually also like doing things apart that makes us individuals that we can then bring back to the relationship. And so we're going to kind of tell a little bit of the story on how we met and what we struggled through and how those struggles kind of burned that love and that like for each other. In our vows, and May was very specific about this, it had to be about iron sharpening iron, or as she would say, diamonds sharpening diamonds. In other words, there was going to be a lot of really tremendously rough spots that we had to rub off of each other. And early on in a relationship, the rubbing off is kind of fun. Cackle camp. It gets... The friction is not always good.
Well,
Let's say that.
This diamond's shining bright, so maybe I just need a little polishing here and there. Is that what you're saying? I'm always in the mood for a good polishing. Let's just put it that way. But you know what? When you have a lot of rough edges, that polishing, as coy as we can be, is often tremendously unpleasant, but amazingly good if you allow it to happen. So, when did you meet me? And how awestruck were you? Oh, this story. You always remember when we met the very first time, and I don't think that even counts because I barely remember it. You're like a fluttering through the park, a fleeting wind blowing in the air, a dandelion across the grass. It was so lame. It was your first year medical school barbecue welcoming picnic, right? And I was so much better than you because I was like a third year and didn't even pay attention to you lowlies. And I just remember, it's a bunch of guys. I don't even remember who introduced us. I just saw a bunch of people sitting on a picnic table, never gave it a bunch of thought, said hi, went on with my business because I was in the cool club. Quickly to be demoted to the real world club. But I don't know. You seem to remember. You remember everything, though. I mean, this guy's needs to go on Jeopardy, so he remembers all the details of that. We probably didn't say very much, right?
What year was it?
Well, I should be able to figure it out pretty quick. You would have gotten in 88.
Yes. What is 1988?
Oh, see, here we go with this kind of stuff. I don't know what happened in 1988, everybody.
Well, there was
other than like Madonna had some hits and Michael Jackson and
right.
I don't know.
Well, that one you've actually hamstrung me a little bit, and I'm.
It wasn't when I'm not getting frightened about our trip to the moon coming up because it wasn't the space shuttle blew.
No, because the space shuttle blew up on January 28th, 1986.
See, this is what I'm talking about. So what happened in 88? So we can get on with the story that
I met you, and everything else was expunged from my memory, like
right,
like black helicopter stuff from Men in Black. So
anyway, that didn't. Are you gonna?
So here, no. I think it's fascinating, though. I think that's an interesting point, which is that meeting to each of us was completely immaterial.
Yeah, I think from hearing from other people share, it's not unique, right? I mean, other people have had those when they've met, acquaintances, friends, barely met, barely know people, and it's just like you don't think about it. It was really not until my ego was humbled and I actually dropped out of medical school, went back into medical school after some health, orthopedic, athletic injuries, long story, came back and joined Tim's class, and ended up, I can't remember, just sitting by you in lectures at some point, and it was just kind of everybody had their spot. We sat by each other. We started to connect. You were always telling jokes. I was always cackling, as you would call it, and it was super fun. And we just started to become mostly lecture friends at the beginning, right? That's how I remember it. You want to interject?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, it would be the amount of studying, as any physician knows, is ridiculous.
Anyway.
So I'd come home and study, and I'm like, I learned this, or I saw this, or I read this book that was completely off topic, because I would always read outside of medicine to just be sane. And I would share that with May, and she always found it incredibly engaging. Actually, probably a lot more engaging 30 years ago than she did now, but, still pretty engaged.
Yeah, funny. Well, some of the stories are over and over. Not the books, though. But anyway, we definitely talked outside of class. Then we'd talk about our day. We started to, call each other, and it became just like a routine thing. We were talking to each other on the phone and talking sometimes for hours. I think that part of our friendship evolved, as well as, we started then to do activities, all kinds of fun things together. And then, honestly, it was probably not very long until I started having deeper feelings in friendship for you. So the like part started to turn into more amorous affections before Tim did.
We went from agape to eros. One of us did that before the other.
Yes.
And actually,
from
May's
like to lust.
What May is trying to say is she became a stalker.
I don't want to admit it, but I actually was. Not in the you kind of way. If you've ever we're watching that right now, and oh my goodness. But yeah. So I will
pretty
share
damn close.
The abridged short. I'm going to say it wrong. Cole's Notes version is not American, right? Does anybody know?
Cliff Notes.
Cliff Notes, Spark Notes. Okay, not Cole's Notes. I can't dismiss the Canadian. I can't. I'm just like a.
It's time for you to leave Canada. Look at what they're doing with COVID. They're dicks. Canada can suck it, okay?
Well, South Park, they like them, so I'm on.
They would completely agree. South Park would totally agree.
We're diversing. So back to the stalker story. All right, really quick. We have in medical school little groups of 4 or 5 people on various rotations, and you do your different clinical rotations in these groups. Well, the group that I was in, of course, I was the single female. These 4 other guys, we were doing rotation going to actually a school for handicapped children that was across from the medical school. So it was an easy walk over there. And it so happened that the very first couple times we noticed Tim's vehicle parked where he would park when he went to school at this house that the family friend. Anyway, we would go past this and we kind of thought it'd be fun to play a trick on him when we just started basically leaving notes on his vehicle. Well, these guys quickly forgot about it, and I continued, but the notes were anonymous, and Tim was like, what the heck? I'm getting all these notes on my vehicle, and he was trying to figure out who it was, and he was starting to get freaked out, and then I started to make them into a little bit of poetry. Well, then it became like the fun thing that everybody would sit around in the common lounge and try to figure out who Tim Stalker was. So I played it a little further. I think this started in the fall, and then it turned into doing more elaborate ones, dropping more clues about myself and the past life, my history and my interests, to see if he could figure it out, and made it like a puzzle and put him in his locker. And he started to get really worried to the point where he thought that there was some psychopath.
Well, I was really worried that it was another guy.
That was kind of the joke going on for a while. It was like, maybe it's this guy. And it was just kind of funny. But anyway, they couldn't figure it out. I disguised my writing. And so then I knew in my heart of heart that I was falling hard for him. And I was trying to play it out until Valentine's Day. And so I thought, I'll tell him on Valentine's Day. And I started to write these more sappier love notes. I don't even know if we still have those things. We'll have to dig. But so that was my plan. But lo and behold, he figured it out how many days before? I think it was a couple days before Valentine's. We went to a concert together with some friends, and he figured it out. And he decided that why not take a chance on this sweet little chick here, and he gave me a big kiss.
I did, but the complicating factor is that was a kiss in February in Saskatoon, and the fact that we were frozen together, welded,
I actually
because it was
stepped
like 75 below zero.
He kissed me in his truck. Then we got out. I stepped out because this thing is raised to the sky.
Nah, it
stepped on the ice, slid, and literally fell underneath his truck. I was laying there on my back, like laughing my butt off, looking up at him like, this is embarrassing. Anyway, so that was the stalking story, and that's how we got together.
Actually, I think that was the 12th of February. 19
it was like, I thought it was like the 9th or something.
91.
Right. So then we dated for a year until we were standing at the cliff, and it was time for match. To get into the match, and everybody who's in medicine knows that if you want to even have a semblance of a relationship and be in the same place as someone else, you either go in the match together and go in as one unit, or we could have ended up at two totally different places across the country. So if we had if we wanted any kind of relationship that wasn't long distance, we had to enter the match together, which meant Tim had to make a commitment about whether or not we would be serious. We didn't believe in living together. So it was like, are you going to ask me to marry you or not, bud? You shouldn't need another year.
So then what I did is that.
So there you go.
That winter for 6 weeks, and it was over Christmas, I was in Nepal, and I got to 18,000 feet 3 times hiking, and I had an hypoxic brain event, and then I proposed.
That's what it took. Oh, my God.
Well, you could either say that or,
You've never said that before, a hypoxic brain event.
Or I saw God.
There you go.
One or the other. All I know is it was like Christmas Eve. We were at 18,000. We were sleeping at 16,500 feet. And I made friends with these people from Australia. And there were 2 guys from Australia, and he was traveling with one of them was traveling with his girlfriend from New Zealand. And they had this, like, 15-year-old red wine that they were going to pop because this guy was going to climb this 21,000 foot.
That was the wine, the lack of oxygen.
And I remember it was the only time above 11,000 feet I slept the entire night.
Wow.
I had like a glass of wine, and then I slept the entire night. And it really was amazing. But this guy, it was like you learned a lot about Australians because he would literally call her she bitch from hell. That was her pet name.
Get out.
Yes.
Really?
I'll go get my climbing gear, but I go get from the she bitch from hell.
That's how you thought I was going to carry all your climbing gear. You just got poisoned from that trip.
I was modeled.
Ooh.
So I came back from that trip, which was in January, and we got engaged on the 13th of February.
Yes.
1992, because to do it on the 14th would be super cheesy. So I actually surprised her. I had a whole bunch of ideas, and every time I would suggest something, she would figure it out. So it was genius. We had to get our pictures taken for graduation from medical school. And I thought, this is it. I got the ring. It's all custom. She kind of knew what she wanted. We had discussed that, but she had no idea when it was going to happen. So we're getting these pictures taken, and there's like, okay, get a picture together, get a picture alone, whatever. And then the photographer had absolutely no concept of what was happening, and she said, well, on this next picture, and May was getting photographed.
They make you sit there, and you're holding. It just looks
you're
like
holding
you're in
a
this
book.
Ancient library, and you're holding these old Reader's Digest.
Right, like I'm holding a book.
book.
Like this one book is all I needed to learn for medical school. Right?
Oh my.
So yeah,
you
just
need a
read,
wagon full of them.
Right. Yeah, just read this one freaking book, and you just read Atlas Shrugged. It's 1,100 pages. You'll be fine. So, anyways, she said, on this next picture, I'd like to see your hands.
That's right.
And I sprinted into action, and I said, well, if you're going to see her hands, then she should be wearing this. And so we had actual professional photographs the exact moment we got engaged.
And the photographer didn't know, so it wasn't even planned.
And she was freaking out more than May was.
Yeah, she was. It was pretty funny. So that was pretty sweet. And I wondered why you were acting all weird before we went there to get our pictures taken.
Because I'm weird.
No, because you were sweating bullets, and I'm like, what's your deal? You're out on your period or something? I guess. So that is that's the preamble to how we got together, how we were, friends first, and just doing fun things together, enjoying each other in class. We rock climbed in the hospital. In the basement, we built not me, but you and someone else built the climbing wall in there. We did things together. We were actually friends first until, you enticed me and hypnotized me into your deep hazel eyes, and the rest is history. So that's really important because we are best friends to this day, and people can see that. They know that we are best friends, but we have independent selves, and we have friends apart from each other, and then interests and hobbies apart from each other that keeps us, I would say, interesting to the other partner. I mean, we can bring something back to the relationship that's fresh and fun. It isn't one of those things where we lead these completely different lives. For the most part, we spend most of our time together, but we do have these fun things where we can step apart, have experiences, and then share something new that we've experienced with the other person, and it brings something great and new and keeps the relationship fresh, which I love. But all this, love, butterflies, and happy pink flowers and hearts flying in the air is not how real life is.
Right, because we packed up the car with the cans and the flowers on it, and it said just married, and we drove straight smack dab into the wall that's called residency.
Yeah, residency. And let's put a roommate in there called a relative that comes to live with you, and other mental health issues like me still struggling with my depression, bulimia. Tim was my Prince Charming that came and swept me off my feet on the white horse, and he was supposed to save me. All that kind of pressure. And man, did it stink, to say things politely on here. Honestly, if it wasn't for our faith, I mean, you would have walked out the door and said, "Chuck you, Farley, I'm done with this." That first year was insane. And now we look at it and kind of laugh mostly. My sister was living with us after 6 months. We hardly saw each other. We were on 2 different call schedules as interns. You're on 1 and 3 call. Then you come home and you sleep most of the time. I could barely get out of bed, and I was depressed and, dealing with my own issues. We're newlyweds. Then my sister's there. She's got her stuff to sort out. And it was just like the total craps, man. And I don't even know how we made it through that because I hated it. I'm like, just let me fail internship so I can go sell makeup at the Macy's counter. That's all I cared about. I was like, get me out of here. But we did. I don't know how. It was totally the grace of God, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, I've heard this before from other people commentating on marriage. It really, we made our mind up. I mean, from my side of the fence, to have been divorced, especially to have been divorced in the first 2 years, would have been the biggest moral failure I could comprehend in my life, because I made a commitment. I said something that I believed, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I was still working through all the struggles of, well, isn't she supposed to be perfect in every way? Because, you're only going to do this once, because I was absolutely committed to only being married once. And of course, you're not marrying this, to quote 38 Special, fantasy girl. You're marrying you're marrying an actual person, with their own baggage and their own family history and their own everything else. And you have to sort that out. And it's incredibly messy. And so in that mess, I mean, you literally have to just say, it will be homicide before it's divorce. And I mean, I think that there was points, obviously our faith was the most critical, anchor, but there was, part of that was this concept that it will be homicide before it's divorce. And it was pretty damn close to homicide. Remember when we were doing a rural rotation and when you were throwing popcorn bowls at me?
Well,
like missiles?
If a popcorn bowl is going to kill you, then you're pretty fragile, my dear. But yeah, I used to
that was after I was kicking the door in to try to make the oven.
And he used to destroy stuff. Not meant at any person, but he'd kick holes in garage walls
Okay,
that were
look,
pretty thin.
Hey, in my own defense, if you've ever tried to change a thermostat in a 1989 Jeep when it's 45 below zero and your fingers are not, you cannot wear gloves to do that, and you have to change the thermostat or else the vehicle overheats and you have no heater in it, you'll understand holes in a garage wall.
Yeah, well, that was warranted. Honestly, that was awful. But really, that point of our life, it sucked. But I think, I don't know, my brain was just a big fog as it was, and I think we were just how we got through that was like, well, this really sucks. It's gonna suck because this is internship year. It's supposed to suck. We've got through all that med school. I mean, we can do it. It was just like, well, just keep pushing on and see what happens. Honestly, and part of it was we were so damn busy or sleeping or just so mired in our stuff, we didn't have much time to really think about it. At least that's how I remember it. Until kind of more after, when it was like, man, that was bad. We didn't have time to go to counseling or figure our crap out. I barely had time to buy groceries and like shovel the snow off of our driveway to get in the door. So all that to say that it's not even when everything looks sunshine and roses and perfect from the beginning, there's struggles even right from the beginning, and there's been struggles along the way. And it's mostly, I would say, me I feel struggled a lot with not feeling like I'm in love with the relationship and with Tim. And there's been two major points throughout our marriage. I think the first one wasn't at like that infamous 7-year point. I'm trying to think.
Well, it was close. I mean, so we finished in Edmonton and we moved to the United States, and which was a complete random occurrence, really. I mean, that was when the first iteration of managed care and capitation was coming. Oh, guess what? That was 25 years ago. Now it's happening again. Yeah. And it worked 25 years. No, it didn't work 25 years ago. So it's probably going to work perfect this time. Yeah. Awesome. We just changed the name to value-based care. Now it'll work perfect. Yay! Sarcasm intended. Anyway, so it opened an opportunity. They needed tons of primary care doctors, and that's what we were. I wanted to live, for me, literally almost 100% of where I wanted to live was geography. I had been windsurfing a lot. May liked the gorge. She didn't like wind, but she enjoyed the environment. And I wanted to be able to windsurf in the gorge whenever I wanted and be, kind of within 2 hours of the Columbia Gorge, 2 hours of the mountains, 2 hours of the coast. And with the various recreational activities that I like, that was my bag. So we ended up in a place in Oregon where in 2 hours I could be windsurfing in the greatest conditions in the world. In 2 hours I could be in Central Oregon skiing in one of the biggest resorts in the country. And in 2 hours I could be riding a dirt bike on sand dunes. So for me, I'm like, this is perfect.
Theme here. I think the listeners are too. There's no I in we.
No, but you wanted to have a house in the forest.
Yes, I said in the forest or on a lake. That's the two requirements.
So we got you in the forest.
Yes.
Actually, a beautifully forested place.
The enchanted forest. So your point too, I said the 7-year itch point. So yes, I guess it was before. You're alluding to it was before we had kids, and I was really struggling. My career, where I was placed, was not working out well. I never really was in love with medicine. It's a long tale of woe that, growing up thinking you're supposed to be a doctor, not liking it all through the whole process, and coming out, being in a first group and career situation that was just not right, hating it, and I was really unhappy, and I was dang mad that Tim couldn't fix it. And
right.
I don't think at that point I was not in love with us in the relationship. I was just really miserable and unhappy and didn't know who I was and what would make me happy, and putting all that pressure on you. And that was a big, difficult time, but it definitely, you probably recognize it more as this rift in the relationship more than it was just like a deep, dark place for me personally and what I wanted.
Right, because your expectation was we were going to get married and I was going to make you happy.
Right.
And then you read a book by Larry Crabb, who's a Christian counselor, and the book was called Finding God. And it was quite interesting because he basically called BS on all of psychology. And he said, people come to me and they say they want to find God, and really they just want to find happiness, and they want to use God as a means to happiness. And that does not make sense. That's not what a disciple would do. So he kind of called BS on his entire profession, his entire career. But what it did for May is it really liberated her to the fact that she's really free to be unhappy. And two things happened. She learned that she was totally free to be unhappy, that she didn't have to be happy. It sounds weird and counterintuitive, but it was incredibly powerful. The second thing that happened is she was demanding this of me. And she said, you're supposed to make me happy. And I said, look, here's the deal. I'm not going to sleep around. I'm going to continue to go to work. I'm going to, put money in the bank. I'm going to try to, be domestically less retarded than I already am. But happy's not my problem. Happy's your problem. We decided that we were going to say these things to each other that before man and God, and we were going to live by them, and I will do that. And whether that makes you happy or not is not my problem. It's yours. And so this liberty, which sounds incredibly counterintuitive, but I think is super powerful, which was the freedom to be miserable was really the key to the freedom to actually be happy, to actually be free.
Right. I think for me, even though all the work I'd done in the past with the counseling I had done with relating to all that other baggage and my eating disorder stuff and the group that I was in, never really unpacked all that, the part of like freedom to just be unhappy and recognize that emotion and just allow it to exist. It was like you had to put that away, and because it's like you hear it all the time, and it kind of makes me sick when people are like, well, I just want my kids to be this and this, but I just want them to be happy. And I'm like, well, that's a good thing, but you know what?
So what if happy is living in a tent under a bridge with a heroin needle in your arm? No, I don't want that for my kids. Be miserably successful. I'll be much more proud of you.
Well, people assume that happy means you're successful, and they're equating happiness with success and all these things in your brain that you would define. So that was super freeing to go, oh, I'm miserable. It's okay to be miserable. Be miserable. Figure out what won't make me miserable. And long story short, that got worked out slowly, but it did. And wow, what a change. And I was totally free to let Tim be free, to not have all this pressure on him to fix me. Fast forward a few years, and the story of me running away from home.
Yes, after our first child.
Well, didn't turn out too successful, but I did run away. Postpartum depression, infant at home, everybody sleeping. Made a big attempt to run away, and didn't go off very well, but that was a deep place where I really was unhappy with, and there's issues because I had postpartum depression, but I was really unhappy, the relationship. But
you were really upset with me and our daughter because we didn't notice that you left.
Okay, we're going to laugh about this now. So the story is, yes, we live in a small town. I got up in the middle of the night because the baby had been crying, and then I was like losing my psychotic mind and hopped in the car, and away I went. Well, I was out of gas. Imagine that. And imagine being in a small town of 7,000 people where everything is rolled up and the doors are shut tight at 7 p.m. Nothing's open to buy gas with. So I thought, I could venture down the other way down the road. But when I looked in my wallet, I had, lo and behold, actually I'd forgotten my wallet. It wasn't in my purse. So I was screwed because I didn't have my wallet or any money or anything. And I think that was back when I didn't even have a cell phone. So I couldn't even call to yell at you or call anyone for help. And I drove back home and sat in the driveway, bawling and screaming my head off. And then I think I came in the house and then woke everybody up by screaming and yelling at them because nobody noticed I was gone. It was awful.
And that's why we have our own gas pump.
And that's why we have our own gas pump.
And we do have our own gas pump because...
in case somebody wants to run away in the middle of the night.
Or in
Yeah,
case somebody
that
wants to
was-
put gas into old cars and motorcycles that doesn't have ethanol in it, because ethanol is made for one thing and one thing only, and that's drinking!
That was horrible, and then it's like, hello, we're both doctors. I think there's something wrong with me. Could it be postpartum depression? Maybe we should ask for some help. There's a lot of pride in the way of that, and now it's just kind of goofy. But I got help. Things got better. But along the way, so we've been married almost 30 years, there's been 2 real points where I really told him, I don't think I love you. And I'm just putting it out there. I mean, I didn't just drop it like a bomb one.
Oh, no, you didn't. Because the second time...
Oh, crap.
The
Yes,
second
I
time,
did.
we're building
I
a...
did.
You were pregnant with our son. Our daughter's 18 months old. We're building a house.
That was the first time.
We're deep... Was that the first time?
Yes.
Yeah, we're deep into this thing. And I'm, like, literally... that was when I wore ties, which is stupid.
Okay,
and I'm sitting there...
We were living in a 16-foot camper in our backyard, and I'm pregnant.
And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to work. And she goes, yeah, oh, and by the way, I don't think I love you anymore. And so my response is, I go full Tina Turner in my mind. And I go, what's love got to do with it? Got to do with it. You bitch, we got 2 kids and a mortgage. What's love got to do with... And I'm like, I go off to work and see 35 patients, swallowing this and going, I don't know, I guess we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that part was a kind of a blur for me, honestly. That was a tough time. I remember, obviously, we got through that. We worked it out. The biggest thing was being able to feel free to sit down with one another and share and be heard and not be, like, attacked either way, and let each other... mostly me, obviously, unpack and talk about why I'm feeling that way and what it is and what could be worked on between us individually to help make things better. And just knowing that this time sucks and that's normal. And that's kind of how I remember that. And then we did some marriage group stuff through our church, which was helpful, but I wouldn't say that I had any specific mentor at that time that really helped me through it, other than some best friends that I talked to. Although we had contemplated doing counseling, and so there was this, just to state that, like, then things, got much better, and there was a second point. There was another point. It was like, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was like 10 years ago. Same thing, where things are, just life's plodding on. You start to neglect certain things. You neglect the date nights. The little things start to build up. And for me, I hold it all in. I put the wall up, put the key away, don't pay attention until it just builds so much that it's literally like a dam that bursts. And then I just feel like I'm not in love anymore. And I'm not even sure I like him. And I'm like, I just want out. That's how I vocalize it. But no, coming through it before and having a good support system and a best friend to bounce it off, and having Tim, knowing and trusting him that I could tell him as my best friend, this is how I'm feeling. It sounds horrible and scary, but I want you to know this so that we can figure out how to work it out, how I need to work it out, whatever we need to do together. And the beautiful part is that Tim, I always knew that he had my back. He would say, like, whatever it takes, if it takes us selling the house and living in a camper, if it takes us totally changing our lives to make things work, I will do whatever it takes, because
living in a paper bag in a septic tank. That's a Monty Python reference. If anyone knows it, you win. Well, and for me, the hard part was I wanted to fix everything because I was Mr. Fix-It. It's like, we got to fix it. We got to make it right. It's got to be fixed. Like, people that are married don't yell at each other. They don't throw popcorn bowls. They don't kick holes in walls. They don't. And the answer is they do. And even, it's interesting. if you look back and you listen to what Billy Graham talks about with regards to his marriage, and undoubtedly, the most respected, at least evangelical Christian in modern times, and he said the biggest regret he has was when raising his kids, they never saw conflict because conflict was bad. No, conflict is not bad. Conflict is inevitable.
Right. It's
how you deal with conflict.
It. And we didn't, during these times, so what people need to know that are listening, still along at this point to this conversation, is that I was one of those, people, typical woman, would not say a lot to begin with and expect that he's going to read my mind. And he's the, fixer. And of course, Tim's just like chasing me around. He believes that, don't let the sun go down on your anger. We can't go to bed without resolving it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about it, because he is a vocal person. He knows how to win an argument very well, and I know that. And I sometimes would need time to even know what I'm thinking, and I need like a day or so. It would infuriate him because I would like sort of drop the bomb and then like not want to talk about it, and he just like, let's fix this, let's talk about it now. I have everything, I know what I want to say. That would be Tim, and I'm like, I don't. And so
that was my own weakness, because if I could fix it, then I could control it, and that's a critical thing.
So with time, it took practice, it took recognizing that, and me learning that there's times when I have to tell him what I'm thinking, but also be fair and to have a discussion, but say, okay, I can share this much now. I'm not really even sure, but I'll talk. But can we come back again, tomorrow or in 3 days? Then I'll be ready to like really discuss more for an hour or something, because then I'll have time to think about it exactly. That is a meaningful way. And that's, something that's a lot more fair. And that takes time. It takes figuring you out. It takes figuring out your communication skills, but being humble enough to know when you're, trying to make the other person guess your mind, or when you're trying to control the conversation. And that's part of maturity. And it's not easy, even for two intelligent professional people. So
I think in some respects,
we're telling you that, it's hard for everybody to figure out.
No, but it's like parenting, right? Like, how many hundreds of babies had I delivered before our daughter was born? And I remember bringing her home, and it was November, so it was reasonably cold, and she's all bundled up, and she had this gigantically fat cheek.
And what did we do when we got home?
We got home, and she's in the car seat. We put the car seat on the seat, and we literally looked at each other, and we go, what do we do with it now? We're just
staring at her. We're like, what do we do? What do we do? She's sleeping. What do we do? And we just sat there looking at her for like,
and it just kind of, it was like Chevy Chase in Vacation looking into the Grand Canyon, like nodding his head. It's like, I guess it will tell us if it needs something.
That's so funny.
And I'd been counseling families and delivering babies for, years, and had hundreds of newborns I'd cared for by that point, and it's mine. And I'm like.
So, honestly, we've gone through a lot, but then we've had tools. We've gone through marriage counseling groups and seminars. We've equipped ourselves with tools. We've led groups.
What do you think the single best
learned
tool?
A lot, and even in the last couple years, we discovered the enneagram. Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Game changer.
And I totally believe in it. It's kind of spooky. It's almost like the, horoscope of voodoo magic, whatever. So it kind of freaks me out, but I do totally believe in that. I wish I'd have known it sooner. So what you say, what has been the...
What do you think of those tools? I remember we went to this. This was actually just
what
when you got
talking stick.
The talking stick was the most idiotic thing I've ever had in my life.
It was like a walking stick.
So it was like you had
like Moses' staff.
This idea was that you had this like this magnet
or what's that didgeridoo thing that plays music?
Didgeridoo. Or you had a stick, and it was like when the person holds the stick, then they have the floor and they're talking. Kind of like rules of, parliamentary procedure. And then the other person has to listen until they get the stick. Well, we tried that about 4 times, and we were just going to beat the shit out of each other with the stick.
And then there was the punching glove one. Remember where you put those stupid boxing gloves on and got to like hit each other when you
And I'm like, so not all marriage resources are created equal.
My arm length is much longer than Tim's.
Yeah, but my punching strength is ridiculous. And I'm like, she's like, my neck. And I'm like, hey, you said you wanted to punch with these things and they were perfectly safe.
Oh.
So like, and that's the point is that like, there's a lot of really terrible advice out there. There's a lot of really good advice, and it also depends on what you need. But I think at least for me, because it's unbelievably practical, I think the single best marriage resource book is His Needs, Her Needs.
Yes, very excellent. That is on the must-read list, and I'll put that in the show notes because people really need to know about that if they haven't heard about it already.
And newsflash.
And figuring out your own needs. I mean, most people don't even know their own needs, let alone their partners.
Right. It helps. It helps you figure out your own needs, but it's super interesting because it just demystifies everything, right? Because there's this, I think traditionally, men want to be this knight in shining armor and fix everything, kill the mastodon and bring food in and be the hunter and the warrior and all that, and women, look for this.
What, want to cook it? Is that what you're going to say?
No, I'm going to say then, and I think women naturally are more kind of nurturing, and so which is fantastic. I mean, the sexes complement each other and all the rest of this. But the fact is that what you think, I mean, you anthropomorphize everything. So you put your needs on the other person, and that's not the way it is. Like I have a completely different set of needs than my best friend.
If you haven't been able
that's
to
a
figure
male.
it out about people that know us, I mean, Tim's needs, he's the talking person, and typically that's more of a female role, whereas I'm the quiet, I want the quiet solitude, don't talk to me, I've had a long day role. And even knowing that is it's outside the norms. Other needs, as far as whether you need gifts or affection or words of encouragement, it's variable.
No, it's fascinating because.
But I'm telling you, that coupled, I think, with the enneagram to understand people and why they do what they do is really the two best tools you could have. It's
a game changer because, like, he just outlines it. He says, look, I mean, the guy that wrote the His Needs, Her Needs, his thing was how to affair-proof your marriage, because he had been a counselor for years and he had counseled people through affairs. And it's like, why did you not have an affair? Now, there's people that are just cheaters and they always cheat, and that's a moral flaw that they have. But he said that's not the case in most affairs. Most affairs, people find somebody else that's meeting their needs, and then they drift into it. It's a slow drift away from their spouse and a drift into the arms of somebody else. It's not like, they got drunk in Vegas and some crazy thing happened. And so when you think of it that way, it's like, well, if my needs were met at home, I wouldn't look someplace else. And you think of it, people go, oh, that's not romantic. Yeah, but you know what? Most of being married isn't romantic. Most of it's practical. And the thing that is amazing about that book, especially when I combine it with some of the other marriage counseling that we've been involved in where we've led groups and so forth, is the number one need for most men is to be sexually satisfied.
That's physical need.
Physical need. The number one need for most women is to be heard. So someone needs to listen to them. But then you combine that with what this other couple said, which I thought was super fascinating. And they said, men don't feel safe in a marriage relationship unless they're having sex. Women don't want to have sex unless they feel safe in the relationship. So it's almost two inverses. Mm-hmm. So if a woman feels like she's heard, she's going to want to be sexually intimate. Honestly, I don't care if you listen to me, if you're naked. Every other time I do care. Wait, if you listen to me.
I'm always listening to you. I'm always listening to him, Kate.
Well, maybe you wear your clothes too often then.
Maybe I do. I don't even know what to say. Let's wrap this stupid show up. Like, oh my gosh.
So what happened in the last 10 years? Because I think we should wrap this up with what worked. Because, I mean,
So I did not step outside the lines of marriage, if anybody's wondering. There was no affairs to be had, not even an inkling. It was just unhappiness and thinking, oh, this is sucking. I don't feel attracted. I mean, I'll be honest, like, all of it, physical attraction, emotional attraction, the connection, the fun, all of that. But it was more of like, I'll just like leave and go on my own, and that was my plan.
So why does it work now though? Because it's way easier and I think way more fulfilling and way deeper now.
So here's the thing.
30 years into this.
This is what I had a lot of prayer, soul searching, but honestly, I think for a lot of people it's like that I counsel and talk to. This is what I said to them, and this is what I say to me. Like, what attracted you to that person in the first place?
My gigantic intellect.
Yeah. So, what is that? Like, think back to that time and what was it about them? I mean, yes, there's times when people radically change their situations, and we're not, I want everyone to know, I have to say this, we're not advocating for you to stay in a marriage that's gone really bad. There's abuse, physical, emotional, mental abuse. This is not what I'm talking about. And yes, people change too. We both do. So, it's not all one-sided either. And you have to give the other person grace. And so I'm like, what was it that attracted me to him in the first place? Yes, your giant intellect. You're funny. You make me laugh. We have great conversations. I was physically attracted to you as well. And so I think, well, what happened and why am I not feeling that anymore? And I work through that, and things, some of it changes. It's time, seasons come and go. And then honestly, I would say I would look at it and go, is it really me or is it you? It's mostly me. It's how I look at things. And it's almost like wiping off the glasses because they're clouded with crap. And it's different voices in my head. And I'm like, Tim is still there. It's just how I'm seeing it and how I'm interpreting things. And, we all get gravity. We get saggy. We get older. We get gray hair. We get...
Speak for yourself.
More complacent. It just is about looking back to what it's all about and what attracted you to that person in the first place. And it's still mostly there, and you can rekindle that. But I think for me, the biggest thing was it was just my issues. And the other thing I will say is a lot of crap is just stuff that doesn't really matter. You get too focused on little things that don't really matter and not forget the blessings and the big things that do. And so here I have a guy that's totally devoted to me, willing to sell the farm for me, to do whatever for me, that loves me unconditionally. I'm like, wow, that is like so unique. That is with me through thick and thin, that I know and trust isn't going to cheat on me. Still loves me, gives me compliments. I'm like, what else would I expect I would get anywhere else?
Somebody that's 5'8".
And so it's like, I'm being selfish here. Because look what he's got to deal with. I'm not any hot specimen or perfection either. So a lot of it is stop looking inward and being selfish. And I think serving the other person and going, you know what? This is why I married you. You're still there. I'm looking at you with the wrong lens. I'm being selfish.
Yeah. I think if you really want...
And that my whole attitude just totally changed. And the little things, the little things that are bugging you that don't really matter, you learn to let those go.
I think where people go really wrong and where things go really right is you have to be willing to meet the needs of the other person and not expect your needs to be met in return. If you go in with that attitude, hoping maybe that they'll do it, but you just do it first. You're the first one to jump out of the plane. Then it actually increases your affections for the other person because you are focusing on them, not yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
And then when it's reciprocated, it just explodes into this is my best friend. She always has been. I know stuff gets in the way and all the rest of that. Ignoring a lot of, there's virtually no hills in our marriage that we are willing to die on. But the ones that we're willing to die on, we will honest to God die on. Period. End of story. So the dishwasher, I empty, she loads. Not a hill I'm willing to die on. But if we push the conflict, there would be dishes flying, so it's not worth it. And I think it goes back to the big pivot point for the entire marriage was my father. And I said, I had all, we were getting engaged and I had all these doubts, and my mother looked at me like with this look of absolute abject horror. And she said, "You think you could do better than May?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess." And my dad goes, "You know what? You're 100% correct. And she could do way better than you." And that was it. That said it. It's like, exactly. No person is going to be perfect in all of the things that you want, but they should be good enough in every single one, and they're going to be amazing in a few. And, this idea that you're going to marry one perfect soulmate, no, you make a soulmate.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people that either of us could have been married to and have exactly the same experience, because the principles that we followed, the principles I believed when I was 17 years old about marriage, never changed. They haven't changed now in, 50 years since then. They haven't changed a single bit. They've only been confirmed because those were true principles. And so,
Yeah, I mean, sitting here thinking about it, just to wrap it up really quick, what you asked me is that I really learned to, like I said, not just the looking at things through different lenses, but to stop looking at them like with a mirror back at myself and looking at you and going, just stop thinking about myself in a selfish way, because things are good. Yeah, things can be better. Well, let's work on it.
Right, and if it's really a sticking point, and if it's really an iron sharpening iron point, then what do we need to take the grinder to?
And so it sounds hard to do, because it is, but sometimes you just have to stop thinking about yourself, stop being selfish, serve the other person, and it's amazing how they see that and recognize that, and then want to do their best to help the other person.
It builds the single most critical piece of a marriage. Because marriages are not built on love. They're not even built on like. They're built on trust.
Yeah.
And when you get to a point where we have been for the last several years now, where May can say, "Man, you're just kind of not doing it for me," and still trust me that I'm not going to freak out, scream, yell, cheat, do whatever it is, and go, "Okay, well, then let's just figure it out." Because we've come this far, I know.
Right. If I didn't trust, and if you're not trusting your partner, you're not going to feel free to say that. So
exactly.
That's a big
and she
part
can
of it.
Trust me to get on a motorcycle for 2 weeks and ride to Sturgis and pretend that I'm a badass for 2 weeks and know that I'm not going to wake up in a tent with some floozy.
Correct.
Because I would just want, if I did, I just want to tell you about it anyways.
I would be, you wouldn't even have to tell me. I could see it all over your little face. You'd be like, I'd be like, "Okay, what'd you do? You're an open book. Come clean." Yeah. So.
Well, this was a longer one. I hope it was helpful for you. We do have to make a little dedication. So this has been a really rough time for us. April the 3rd, we lost our producer, Roxy, our dog, suddenly. Now we have a new producer, which is the cat, Chevy, who's sitting on May's lap right now. And unfortunately, on the 10th of April, I lost my 92-year-old mother, who was an amazing mom, who was an example of all of these things that we described, and who was married for 65 years to her loving husband, who she is now in his arms.
Absolutely. It's amazing. What an example that we all strive for that. And if you're out there struggling with where you're at, please get help. Honestly, even email us, reach out to us. We would love to hear from anybody. This is big to our hearts to help others. And so send us an email. I'll link our contact info, but through Facebook, Instagram, or on our website. We'll be happy to hear from you. I do want to remind everybody, thanks to our sponsor, Contract Diagnostics. This is a company that specializes in contract reviews. Specialization is something we can all appreciate here. So again, when you or your family have contract needs, give them a call. And you can find them at drpodcastnetwork.com/contract diagnostics, or call the number again, 888-574-5526 at contractdiagnostics.com. Loved having you guys on here again. It's always fun.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
But we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.